Hey everyone, welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, the show where we discuss any issues or challenges you may be having. The concern we are handling in this segment comes from very drawn out, and it reads, "Most of the time, I feel okay. I usually spend my time playing games, drawing, watching videos online, things like that. I typically keep to myself if possible, not really socializing with others. When I do try to socialize, most of the time I get nervous and feel like I messed up my chances of making a connection. And whenever that happens, I get into this terrible state of mind where I feel like I don't want to do anything and that I shouldn't try to make connections with others because it will always turn out bad. That feeling usually lasts for a while and then the cycle repeats. Are there ways to break that cycle?"
Awesome question.
Yes.
That's
And-
super relatable.
My goodness.
Would you like to start, or do you want me to go for it?
Hey, I read the question. You get to start.
Awesome. I will do that then. So, so yeah, that's again super relatable. I totally understand that, and I like that you are understanding that it's a cycle that keeps on happening. It tells me that you're being very analytical about it, and that you're on the right track already. I think it's important to notice that your nervousness is caused by worrying about it ending or being a terrible situation or whatever, it not working out like you want it to, and then that whole thing just cycles and whatever. So, anyways, yeah, I've got some ideas about what you can do to get out of this. One thing is just own it. Just own it. Go in there like you think you know what you're doing. That's key, because no one knows what they're doing. I'll tell you what, we're all humans. We all have different personalities. We all have different interests. We all have different smells. All right. Yeah, apparently.
And fingerprints.
And fingerprints. Well, apparently not fingerprints.
And hair follicles.
And hair. We all have different matter that makes up our skin and things. We have different DNA. We have different timelines. Anyways, so there's no one way, no absolute key here's what you need to do to make friends with every single person in the world. You can't do it. But being a little bit more confident in yourself and feeling like you can make it work is often what makes it work. Because and now, how do you get there? Through trying, through pumping yourself up maybe a little bit before you interact with them. Pump yourself up and don't bring yourself down. So when you go to interact with somebody, you're going to be nervous, and that's going to be okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty normal if you're not used to doing that. But before you talk to them, say things to yourself that aren't like, "Oh man, what if I mess up? What if it's super awkward? Or I'm going to be so nervous and my hands are going to sweat and they'll notice." Or, don't talk about that to yourself. When you talk to yourself about, "All right, I just got to get in there and I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to own it. Basically, I'm just going to walk in there. I'm going to make them feel good, and I'm going to make a friend."
Mm-hmm.
Or say like, "Oh, but I really should do this, and I want to get to know the person. The person looks like a cool person. They seem like a cool guy, or a girl or whatever. I'm interested in them, and it's not going to hurt me if I go and make a friend, or if I don't end up making a friend, because right now I don't have a friend in them. So either I end up the same or I move forward. So I've got nothing to lose here." Talk to yourself and try to lift yourself up. Don't bring yourself down before the discussion that you end up having with them. I think that helps, ramping yourself up. Another thing is it's the key thing that I tell everybody when it comes to dealing with people. And basically goes like this. When you're dealing with people, what matters most is not what you look like to them, but what they look like to themselves when you're around them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Write that down. I will repeat it, and you can re-listen to it. But what matters most is not what you look like to them, but what they look like to themselves when you are around them.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all of your best friends. Think about any friend you've ever had. Think about anybody that you like, that you've interacted with on a personal level. Those are the people that generally made you feel good when you were around them. Those are the people that you feel good about yourself when you're around them.
Mm-hmm.
If you are that for somebody else, making a friend is so easy. Even if you don't share anything in common. They like NASCAR and you think NASCAR is boring. They like football and you think football is annoying. And that's the only two things they know how to talk about. And so you aren't very close with them, but you're still their friend because you took the time to tell them, wow, your dedication to football is impressive. And that'll lift them up because they like football and they are impressed with their own dedication to football. And so you just point that out and they're like, thanks, man. That's awesome. You like football too, huh? And it's like, no, I don't. Oh, wow. Okay. That's weird. But they'll think you're weird, but that's okay, right? The most important thing is just to make them feel good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Point things out about them that you like about them. And I'll tell you, that'll make your conversations work a lot more smoothly. I had to learn, I learned how to converse with people two different ways. The first way was talking to people online. That really trained me how to talk to people in real life. So when I talked to people online, I paid attention to how other people were doing it. I watched other people talk to each other. And then I started to be able to kind of do the same thing. I took on, like, if you ever watch me type, I use tons of emotes, and that's like emoticons, like little letters I use for faces and stuff like that. I use tons of those because when I learned how to communicate online, I watched people who did that, and then I took it to the next extreme. But that was a molding point. It molded me in how I began being able to talk to people in real life. When it came to real life, I was extremely scared because most people in my school, I thought hated me. I thought no one liked me. And so I was entering the situation where I had this, social stigma. I thought everyone didn't like me. So I went up to them and I purposefully sat down next to people who were basically strangers or maybe even enemies, and would force myself to strike up a conversation with them. And whether the conversation lasted a minute, 3 seconds, or 25 minutes, it was a success.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a step forward. And I went away from the experience going, I did it. I talked to somebody. Into there. And basically my conversations I'll tell you, it's so easy to start a conversation when you just look at somebody and say, I like their shoes. And then you go up to and say, hey, I like your shoes. Did you buy those? Or where'd you get them from? Or I like your pants. And being really genuine about it. I think your pants are cool. I always like the dark shades that, dark shades with the light. And they'll be like, yeah, cool. Or they'll be like, oh, thanks, man. Yeah, me too. I went on, I picked these pants out on purpose because I really like that too.
Or they're like, my pants? These are not my pants.
That's right. That's kind of like an inside joke, but yeah. And then they rip their pants off, and underneath are another pair of pants.
These are my pants.
It's like, why did you? What?
Oh man. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Or compliment their shirt, compliment their hair, compliment their skin, and whatever. I remember my mom complimenting people on the the way their skin looked so smooth or whatever it was. And I was like, that's a weird one, but it's a compliment nonetheless, and people like it.
It is. In fact, you mentioned your mom.
She's really
Me.
eyebrows.
Yes, she complimented me on my eyebrows. Were you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my mom's thing. She pays attention to people's eyebrows. She's like, wow, your eyebrows are really cool.
Yeah. It was strange because I'd never heard that before, but I was very complimented by that because it was so specific.
Yeah.
That's a key, is being specific.
Yeah. So that's a great way to open a conversation and get yourself moving. Ultimately, the only way to get over this this cycle, this dilemma, is to prove that you can do it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And don't beat yourself up when you think something goes wrong. Things are going to be awkward. Embrace the awkward. The awkward is not a bad thing. A lot of times we label things as bad because we don't necessarily like how they feel, or we're not sure how we should feel. But that isn't what makes something bad. That's just our disposition. We need to be able to look at awkward and say, awkward is an opportunity. Awkward, because, okay, what happens when things are awkward? They get quiet? Well, perfect. That's all the more opportunity to make noise, right? You have to thrive in the awkward. You have to enjoy the awkward moments. If you can train yourself to enjoy the awkward, like purposefully try to drive a conversation so that it becomes awkward, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Because if you can do that and you'd be like, yes, I made it so awkward, it's awesome. Voice in yourself in that, then nothing will break you down in a conversation ever again. So as you're doing this, as you're moving forward in your ability to converse with people and move forward in breaking this cycle, one step I would suggest is get to a point where you are in a conversation where you decide, I'm going to purposefully try to make this really awkward, and then do it on purpose and make it awkward, because then you have nothing to lose. And then you learn to embrace the awkward, and you're like, I did it. This is awesome. It's so awkward right now. This is hilarious. I love it. And then no matter what comes to you from that moment on, when something gets awkward, you understand it's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of the way conversations move sometimes, and it's okay. And you're going to be nervous at first. That's part of it. But if you force yourself to do it and you don't give up, and you tell yourself compliments, and you tell other people compliments, because we're all humans. We all like compliments. We all like when other people see the good in us. And honestly, that's why you want to talk to people in the first place, right? To create something good. Mm-hmm. That's what a relationship is for, to make something good out of what was originally nothing. There was no relationship there, but then you met and you made something that is good. And so even if there is an awkward moment in the relationship, even if it starts off on an awkward moment, it's still seeking the end of a good. And making mistakes along the way is not bad. It's not evil, right? You know that. It's not evil to make a mistake. It's not evil to be nervous in front of them when you're trying to, talk with them. What's evil is to destroy a relationship on purpose, right? And that's not what you're doing. So just keep that in mind. And I hope that really helps. I'll tell you, I used to suffer with this a lot, like I said, and I've come a very long way. So I'm saying I know that you can do it too. And I've seen other people do it too. It's totally, you can totally break this cycle. And I believe in you. So, especially if you're already talking about, you're asking, how do you break the cycle? Like you're already moving in the right direction. So I'm going to give it up to Joe and see what Joe has to say about this.
Well, first thing I would say is go back and re-listen to that part that Ryan said. And this will be posted also within probably a week or two. We'll have this segment posted under your question. You can come back to that specific thing and listen to it again and again. But what Ryan said there is so important. There's really only two things that I can add to what he said, because he handled it so beautifully. And has two things. One is when you're, like what Ryan was talking about, it's not important how you feel when you're talking to someone else or how they think about you. What's important is how they feel about themselves while you're there. I can't state that enough. I'm glad Ryan repeated it twice. I'm going to repeat it again because that's such a huge principle. It's not important how others see you. It's more important how they feel about themselves while they are in your presence. So remember that, like grind that into your brain somehow. And if you can get good, here's the first thing. If you can get good at asking questions, look outside of yourself and ask questions, like that takes, for one, that takes all the pressure off of you because you're asking questions about them. You don't have to come up with something clever to say once you get good at asking questions, because you're just going to ask. Because I heard a guy say one time, become a prodigious noticer. Like, notice things about people, notice things about, the situation around you, notice things that are going on, all these kinds of different things. One, because it gets the focus off of yourself. And the biggest problem that you're facing in this situation, very drawn out, is that your focus is on yourself. And it's natural. It's natural for us to be focused on ourselves. It's natural for us to want to do things right and to, be monitoring our own behavior. It's totally natural for that to happen. But when you can notice things outside yourself, notice things about other people, like Ryan said, people's shoes, people's pants, people's hair, people's eyes, people's eyebrows,
people's interests, people's
absolutely
talents.
Interests. I dealt with this. Now I'm old, so I'm very unrelatable to all of you because I'm old and I have kids and I'm a parent. And so, like, the other day we were at a birthday party for my oldest, it was one of my oldest son's friends. We all went to this birthday party. It was a blast. We played laser tag in the woods.
Nice.
It was great. Like, man, it was so much fun. But, I had that social awkwardness around all the other parents. So there's a mob of parents and there's a mob of kids, 6 to 11-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there with all these parents. And I am that socially awkward guy still to this day. And I'm like trying to think of something to say. And then I remembered. I'm like, oh, ask a question. Because, we're talking about stuff, and it's so funny because most people are the same way you are. Yeah. They just don't look like it. Mm-hmm. And so you say something and people don't pay attention. Or you say something that's interesting, you think is interesting, they're not interested in it, And I was dealing with this exact situation. I'm like all awkward. And then I was like, I remembered, oh yeah, this guy, he does insurance. He's an insurance guy. And so I just asked, hey, how's the world of insurance? And that got him talking for 5 minutes about insurance stuff. Another guy, he's actually on the school board of the school that our kids go to. And I was like, hey, aren't you on the school board? He said, yeah. I'm like, so what's that like? And he said, oh, well, it's like this and that. And, actually the principal makes it really easy for us because she's blah, 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 and this and that. And just, and then the key thing that I had to remember to do was listen intently. So if you can be a good asker of questions and then be an intent listener, and then listen for things you can ask another question about in their answer, you will guide the conversation. You will be in control of the conversation. The person who asks the most questions is the person in charge of the conversation. Let that sink in a little bit. The person who asks the most questions, that's the person who's in control of the conversation. So if you get good at that, you will guide the conversation. You won't say a thing, hardly at all, except ask a question. And then these people just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And you know what they will say about you? That person's a great conversationalist. And you said 10 words.
You said 10 words the whole time. They talk the whole time. But you know what? That's what people love to do.
They do. They want to talk about themselves. And if you can encourage them to talk about themselves, ask them questions about themselves, and then encourage them to talk, it's going to take some practice to get good at it. Nothing comes easy. But, Akil, are you telling me to calm down? I'm sorry. I get excited when I go with revelations, and because I have personal experience with this just recently, like the other day, I dealt with this, and I remembered something, and I fixed it, and it worked, and it's totally the same situation. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. But anyway, so that's the first thing. Get good at asking questions and get good at listening. And then the next thing is, have you ever heard of shadow boxing? Ryan, you've heard of shadow boxing, I'm sure.
Yes, I know shadow boxing.
Shadow boxing is when, you're practicing, you're like, this is for boxers, obviously for fighters. What they will do is they'll stand and look at themselves in the mirror, and they will throw punches and, all this kind of stuff, right? And that's how they will practice. Part of that is because you learn better when you're in the stress-free environment. You learn faster when the pressure's on. Like you throw somebody in the water with it's deep water over their head, they don't know how to swim, then they're going to, oh my gosh, they're going to struggle to survive, and they're going to somehow make it to shore. So they're going to learn how to swim as long as it's not too far out, obviously. Yeah. But, they're going to learn how to swim really quick. But they're not going to learn how to swim properly.
Right.
They're going to learn a whole bunch of just surviving, like that's the pressure's on. They're just doing whatever it takes to not die. But if you can learn in a stress-free environment, then you will learn more and you'll be more comfortable when the actual situation happens. That's the thing with shadow boxing. So what you can do in this particular situation, think shadow boxing for this. And what I want you to do is when you're by yourself, imagine yourself in a crowd of people. Imagine yourself walking through the crowd of people, and just mingling with people. Imagine those people smiling at you and laughing and being responsive to your questions. You're asking smart questions. You do all this stuff. Imagine all this going on, and act it out. It's fun. You're by yourself. Who cares? Nobody's watching.
Do the different voices for people. It's fun that way.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Oh, you're from Russia. Wait, what part of Russia? Never heard of it. All right.
Never heard of it. Where is that? It's up north.
It's up north. Well, all of Russia is up north, really. So
we have the snow.
Use imagination. We have snow and salt. We have lots of salt. Can't tell. Even with snow dry, you still can't really see anything but white because so much salt. It's funny.
He's everywhere. It's
everywhere. They put it. I don't know why they put it in the ocean when they made the ocean, but it ended up on my land. Sorry, getting carried away.
But do that. Think shadow boxing. Think practice when you're by yourself. In the stress-free environment. Practice mingling by yourself. And what's that going to look like? And visualize it being successful, when you're there. And it will make you so much more comfortable. And then when you can learn to start asking some questions, I tell you, it's game over. You're going to you won't be worried about it at all anymore. And sometimes people will blow you off anyway and be like, ugh. You know, you might be like, how's it going today? Ugh.
Yeah.
And then you know that's your cue to find a different person to talk to. Don't try and like draw blood from a stone, you know, like you know, but you know, find somebody responsive. And what you'll find is when you ask a question to someone, and you ask that question about, and it's something that's important to them, man, you can totally light them up, and they will talk.
They will talk. So will I. Every one of us does that.
Yes. And then your problem is going to be, here's the problem. Your new problem isn't going to be feeling awkward and wondering how this cycle, you know, this breaking the cycle. The new problem is going to be, how do I end the conversation without being rude? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been listening to this guy talk about insurance for like 10 minutes. And my kid wants a hot dog and he needs my help. You know, like.
Yep.
So yeah, so then you have to get good at tactfully removing yourself from conversations. You know,
Tact, prudence.
Yes. So
but, yeah, that's a whole other thing. I don't know.
It is. Tact. Well, I'm sure we'll handle tact on one of these shows at some point. But yeah. But seriously, everything Ryan said, plus get good at asking questions, and then practice when you're by yourself. Practice being in the environment. Imagine the environment when you're by yourself, because then it's stress-free. You can make a mistake and it doesn't matter. You can kind of think about what you're going to say, all these kinds of different things, but always focus on asking questions and getting other people to talk. And then that your conversational abilities, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It'll be awesome. So thank you so much for posting that. Very drawn out. I really, really, really appreciate that you took the time to post that, and you found the website and you did it right there.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah. One thing you can do also for yourself is don't worry about whether they're going to be your friend or not. Just be their friend. I remember Joe talking to me once, and he said something along the lines of, when we're kids, we often say, hey, will you be my friend? Will you be my friend? And that's so backwards, because you don't ask someone to be your friend. Like, hey, we've never met before, but will you make a lifelong commitment to, always be on my side and be good to me and do what's best for me and that sort of thing. It's like, no, you don't ask someone to do that. That's what you're saying when you say, will you be my friend? No, you just be their friend. You go up to somebody imagining you're already their friend, rather than wondering constantly, I hope they're my friend. I hope they see me as a good person. I hope they, if you can take yourself out of the equation and just focus on them, it goes so much smoother. Because what is a relationship anyways? If you're trying to form a relationship with somebody, it's because you're trying to, build them up. That's the whole point of friendship, is to build another person up. So if you're going into a conversation and you're worried about yourself, then you're worried about the wrong person in the relationship. Because, if you go to a relationship and it's all about you, then you're not in a relationship at all. You're just using them. And it's a lot of times, unfortunately, what some people's concept of love is, and what they experience in their relationships when they date other people and they find out that the other person did it all for them and it was never about you or whatever. So just make sure you focus on them. I think that if your heart is in that place, and I think everything should go smoothly for you. But yeah, Joe said that, try not to focus on yourself. It's what all of us do. It's backwards. So,
and what you'll have happen, if you're like me, you suffer from diarrhea of the mouth.
Gross. That's disgusting. You puke all the time?
No, well, it's it's kind of what makes us good on talk shows is because we can talk and talk and talk for a long time about stuff, But when you're in a conversation, what'll happen is I'll be talking to somebody about something, and then I'll see their eyes start to wander or glaze a little bit, or they'll start to shift in a little bit and look around. And I know at that moment, what I'm doing is boring them. So I quickly need to turn it into a question or change the subject and get off of myself and onto something about them. Ask a question about them and get them talking about themselves again. So like that's something to pay attention to. And these are all things, as you get better and as you do it more and more, and I tell you, when you take what Ryan talked about and you put that in your heart, the thing about trying to make other people feel good about themselves when they're in your presence, a whole new world opens up to you when you're around other people. It's amazing. It's like this whole, you never knew it existed. It's like the sun comes out again and you're like, what just happened,
I thought there were only clouds left.
I know. I live in mid-Michigan. That's all we have are clouds here.
Clouds here, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, when the sun comes out, it's like, what?
Yeah.
No way.
Because Michigan is, I believe, the second cloudiest state in all of the United States, only trumped by Washington.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So we would be good to have vampires.
We have 10 days of sun. That's it.
10 days of sun.
In a whole year, we have 10 days of sun. That's our average. That's Michigan.
Yay, us.
If any of you understand that, that's what we think is normal. And so when other people talk about, oh, it's a cloudy day, it's terrible, and we're like, what are you talking about? Every day is a cloudy day. And that's okay. Like, that's fine. That's normal.
Right. Cohagen 823 is in Washington.
Huh? There's 23?
Cohagen 823 is in Washington.
Oh. Wow.
Hey, so you are in a cloudier place than us. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all vitamin D deprived. Oh, for sure.
That's why we put it in our milk.
Yeah, that's why we actually have vitamin D milk. Yeah. Concentrated vitamin D in our milk.
Yep.
It's the only way.
Yep. The rain is nice. I actually am so used to it. I like it cloudy. I do enjoy it.
Yeah. Actually, I prefer it cloudy a lot of times because then when you're driving around, it doesn't hurt your eyes.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Yeah.
Anyway, that's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, very drawn out. I'm really glad you showed up so we could get to your topic.
Yeah, we were asking for you earlier on the stream, but you weren't here, but I'm glad you showed up. So, thanks.